Hi, Jamie.
Hey, Peter, I'm in the woods today.
You're always seem to be in the woods. It's like a metaphor for your life right now. Right. Whenever we talk off camera or off air, I'm thinking this guy is in the wood. Like, help him get out of the woods. He needs some wayfinding.
It's coming slowly. I can see it like little creeps, little
Oh
things.
my gosh. Oh, you've got your Oakland Bees hat. Nice.
I do.
We're shareholders.
Are you really? Did you invest $10?
Exactly. It's more fun to say we're shareholders. Yes. When the Oakland A's left Oakland, our hearts were broken, and spearheaded by my lovely wife, we became shareholders in the Oakland Bees. And apparently that's quite fun to go to their games. I hope to get there one day.
Yeah, I haven't been to one yet either. I've actually only tend to see all my friends with pictures at the Oakland Bees games. And I was in Arkansas not too long ago, and I was wearing this hat, and they were like, "Bees what is that? What team is that?" And I explained it, and they're like, "Oh, A's Bees. That's really cool." And I was like, "Yeah, it is."
But they're the ballers, the Oakland ballers.
Yeah, they're the ballers, babe. Yeah, that's right.
Awesome.
That's right.
So
It's
cool.
Oakland, baby.
How are you, man?
I'm good. I'm good today. I feel great today.
Yeah, it's a
I'm
lovely-
excited. I'm excited about a lot of things, but my eldest is here up in Tahoe with us, so that is amazing. Turns out
Fantastic.
his best friend, who had driven across country with his girlfriend, is Amtrakking back to the Bay and is gonna stop in Truckee and stay with us for the night.
Oh,
We
how
get to
cool
hang
is
out
that?
with Joaquin's best friend.
Oh, that's
Yes.
really what a nice opportunity. That's great. That's very cool.
Isn't it cool?
Yeah,
It's so
I
cool.
was recently talking to somebody whose kids are significantly younger, and I said, it just becomes so infrequent that you get to see your kids all together, and how you just celebrate.
true.
No one really prepares you. You realize it's going to happen, but just emotionally, you're just not ready. And then last night, I got a call from my kid, but it was like 1 a.m. for him. I'm like, it's 1 a.m. And I always answer the phone like, what's wrong? Like, that's probably the worst thing that people, I ask that to anybody who calls. I haven't heard from them. What's wrong? Everything okay? Yeah, man. What kind of greeting is that?
I know what kind of greeting that is. I want to listen to this transition. Why? Just wait for it. That is a solid New York Long Island Jew response. What's wrong?
All right, I'll take it. And that's a
Yeah.
great transition because our guest today is a Long Island superintendent. I hope you were as energized after.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
She was great.
I'm so excited for everyone to hear our conversation with Dr. Monique Darrisaw-Akil, superintendent. Yeah, please.
Can I say one thing really
Please.
that I just told my wife was that I love when we get generally New York, but more specifically, if we do get a Long Island superintendent, when you introduce yourself, you're like, "I'm from Long Island, South Shore," and I'm like, "Oh my God, I just love
I'm from the East. I'm from the Bay Area, East Bay, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're like, "I'm from the Bay," and they're like, "Where are you from?" Oakland. You gotta say where it is specifically.
Exactly.
I know Cupertino. I'm not from.
When someone's I'm from San Francisco. Oh, really? What part? I'm from Danville. That's not San Francisco.
God,
What are you
my wife
kidding
and I
me?
used to have this. We had this fight all the time, having grown up on the Bay. And she's like, "I'm from the Bay Area." I'm like, "You're from Concord. You can't even see the
No.
Bay. Like that doesn't
Yeah.
count."
Yeah. No, ridiculous.
As someone who has now moved toward Concord and lives close to
I
Concord,
know. Now you're just
I
trying
basically,
to. Yeah, you're like, but
yeah.
my roots are in the.
thus the baller's hat, right?
I live in Seattle, and I have a Mets hat on.
Oh God.
Yeah, we're all dealing with our identities. Trying to.
Aren't we? Consistently, even at my age.
I love it.
So let's listen to her. I mean, God, there's so much I want to talk about. It felt like this person and I came up through public ed with the same lens, the same approach, like so many ways in which she described things. I'm like, yes, exactly. Just do that. Like, it's almost like if I meet other leaders and they're like, how do you explain this? I'm like, oh, you should go listen to, because that's how it felt to me.
By the way, I should tell you, I'm pretty excited because, to your point, I have a friend who is on the State Board of Education for Missouri. He and his brother founded a Silver Dollar City, which is, near in Branson and the whole, sort of the Las Vegas of the Midwest. And they partly own Dollywood and they own the Harlem Globetrotters. And so he's a fairly successful individual and really committed to public education. He has been listening. I have a meeting coming up. What are some episodes that I need to be sharing with people to be listening to focus them, because you guys do such a nice job. And I was like, oh, isn't that nice? Isn't that great?
I love that question.
Yeah.
When people say, "Hey, we'll share a couple episodes with me," I'm always kind of thrilled It's like making a music playlist for your friend of, oh,
A mixtape.
well, let me curate for you. Listen to this person and listen to this person. I love those questions.
And so here, to make it a little easier for you, if you're ever interested, if you go to my website, imperfectleader.com, and you go to our podcast page, you can type in a theme and it'll tell you which episodes talk about that theme. So
Love
if you're, obviously your mixtape can be as you choose, and if you've got someone who is interested in a particular area or a particular topic, then you can easily at least get the list and then say, oh, these are the ones I really loved.
That's so interesting. What if I type superintendent? What would happen?
I think every episode would probably come up. It might break, or it might. I should program it. I should have it just with an emoji like that, just gives you the finger. Like it's like what?
That's making it now. I'm going to type in Long Island and see what happens.
Oh, that'd be fun.
That's so great. That's
All right. Here
all
we
right,
go.
well, listen.
You're listening to an Imperfect Leader, the Superintendents and Leadership Podcast. Today on An Imperfect Leader, Dr. Monique Darrisaw-Akil, Superintendent of the Uniondale School District, is my guest. And I want to tell you why I had to talk to Dr. Akil. This is what I read in the Long Island Herald. Residents throughout Uniondale will tell you, this community, once grappling with educational challenges that seemed insurmountable, has undergone a remarkable transformation under the leadership of the Herald Beacon's inaugural Person of the Year, Monique Darrisaw-Akil, the Superintendent of the Uniondale School District. Monique, welcome to An Imperfect Leader.
Hi, Peter. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm so pleased to meet you. And you're on Long Island. I'm from Long Island, South Shore. But, I've spent so much time in my youth going to Uniondale to Islanders games, Arrows games, concerts, I think the Big Apple Circus at one point. But I am so thrilled to meet you. And this is why. When you took over Uniondale, as I read and learned more, it faced so many challenges. It had lagging graduation rates. It had below average proficiency scores. It had outdated infrastructure. And you've been credited with orchestrating this massive cultural and educational shift, including the addition of additional student resources. And I wonder, so many district leaders face similar daunting tasks and really are not sure where to begin. Would you talk about the process you use I like to use the term agitate for change, agitate for meaningful and enduring change. Yeah. So would you talk a little bit about your work there?
Oh, sure. I love that. Agitate. Perfect description. So first, I think framing is everything. And while I very humbly accept the accolades, I do think the kind of rags to riches story is a little not quite accurate to where we are. So I came into the school district that had so many wonderful things happening, strong, stable, consistent leaders, caring relationships with not only the students, but also the community, and definitely on an upward trajectory. And you have to also think that when I came in, we were really still in the pandemic, moving out of it. So some of the data that was stagnant, I would say, is very typical of what schools were going through all across the country. While there have been successes, I am very careful to frame and also to provide context that there wasn't a meteoric rise if there wasn't a solid foundation of community support, clear visionary leadership from our Board of Education and our leaders and staff that was there. We wouldn't have been able to get any of the gains we've had so far. So I just want to kind of set up that frame that feels more authentic to what really took place.
Yeah, otherwise it's sort of like that waiting for Superman kind of thing.
And
Yeah, no, I totally get that.
That's
Yeah.
definitely not where we are. Uniondale is such a unique community. Graduation rates were in the low to mid 80s and just we're moving up. Our attendance rates are moving up. We've done a lot of work around college and career access, and we're definitely working on increasing our literacy and numeracy rates as measured on state assessments as well as our own local measures. So we have seen gains, but again, the district was already positioned to make those gains. But to answer your question in terms of what are some of the things that we did was one, I think you have to know your numbers, right? So my analogy always is if you set a goal, a fitness goal, a weight goal, whatever goal you set, you really have to step on the scale and say, where are we today? So I think being very clear and clear without judgment, right? I think that's very important. Like whatever your number is, that's your number. Whatever our reading scores are, that's where we are. It doesn't mean you were a bad leader. Doesn't mean the teachers are not good. Doesn't mean the kids are not good. It just means this is where we are right now. But I think that when you come into districts and we talk and there's all these euphemisms and excuses that are being made without really looking at the data, then you really can't have a clear path forward. So that is something that I was very clear about. Where are we now? What's our baseline? Where do we want to go next? And how do we really partner with those who are here, parents, community, students, leaders, teachers that have been here for a really long time? How do we partner with them and really use their expertise? Because as a new leader coming in, we all think we are coming in, we're going to change stuff, we're going to transform. But when they say that the answer is in the room, I believe that in schools too. There are teachers who are waiting to be asked, what do you think we could do to change math instruction in our school? How can we better serve our ENL students? The answers are in the room. They're waiting to be listened to. So I think you take that information, you listen, you curate all this information, and then you say, hey, how do we align what you're thinking with where we want to go? And of course, evidence-based practices, right? Not that gut intuition, but like where has it already been successful in communities like this, and set a clear plan in place that everyone can rally behind. So one of our first initiatives was around creating a strategic plan. And I think people are really proud of it because they see themselves and their voices in it. It's not just Monique's vision, Dr. Akil's vision, the board's vision, a small group of trusted folks. It's really parents can see their voice. Students can say, we wanted it this way. And that's what you see in that vision. And I also think that there's initiative fatigue in school districts. I think we go into school systems and we tell folks, we need you to change 20 things. Like when you go into a classroom, if you've been a professional observer, and that in of itself is really kind of crazy on some level, right? That I'm going to sit and watch you work and give you coaching feedback.
That
Well, I
feedback
think
is
it's not
typically coaching for compliance, and feedback is not seen as constructive, but rather destructive, isn't it?
it can be done very well,
Yeah,
but I don't know
sure.
if
But
overall-
I think I was responding to making a
Right.
career out of it as opposed to
Right,
peer
right.
coaching, right? I'm walking in these shoes with you. I know what you're going through. We can do this together. That appreciative lens of what's going on, how do we get more of it? And you're speaking to harvesting that collective wisdom of your community. And I love how you talked about student voice. I mean, these are children who are going to absolutely inherit your school district, potentially as parents in your district. So shouldn't they have a voice in what they learn and what their children are going to learn down the road? Oh my gosh. It seems novel. It shouldn't be. It should be like normal, like course of action, but it isn't always. So, wow, that's great.
Yeah. I think that's really important that when we go into classrooms and we give teachers feedback and support, that we really go in with the inquiry stance. And I think we approach everything, whether it's conversation with students, conversation with parents, like the level of humility I believe leaders have to have. And we're not good at it, right? Because you get to this job because someone says you're good, you're hot stuff, right? And so we're constantly being inflated. And the other thing I have learned is the higher you move up in leadership, the less critical feedback that you get. So all of a sudden, all your jokes are funny. And all of a sudden, all your ideas are great, right?
Oh, yes. And
You're-
everyone answers your phone calls.
Right. You're in this positional authority. So, like, where do we really get feedback about our work? So, I think we have to have a degree of humility when we talk to teachers and talk to students and families, and really have a serious inquiry based stance in leading this work.
So I get the fact that as you described the sort of cultural field, the way that the district feels and was sort of primed and ready to move forward, and that you happened to come in at a time where you were ready to lead, your team was ready, your teachers craved the opportunity to give you authentic and genuine feedback and advice, and you took that and crafted, and I love the word curated that you used, but you crafted this strategic plan that made a lot of sense. I think there's a piece to give you credit for, which is I noticed that there was an increase in the rates of higher level coursework for students. That increased. And that had to have been something that came from both you and your team and your teachers saying, our children are smart, that they are capable, and that we have been maybe selling them short. And I wonder, why is it important to invest in programming like AP coursework, and whether it be International Baccalaureate or
Right.
CTE or the kind of higher level courses that we sometimes see missing in districts and communities that need them the most.
I mean, I'm glad you say that because for me, that's at the heart of the equity agenda, right? So a lot of people talk the talk around equity, and it means it's one of those words like scaffolding, differentiation, science of reading, like you fill in the blank, whatever
Oh
that
my
term
gosh.
is.
Yes.
Whatever that term is, it can mean everything and nothing all at the same time. But so for me, equity is about opportunity gaps. Who has opportunities to make choices and decisions that will prepare them to be a leader and who doesn't. Like I always say, some students are being prepared to lead, others are being prepared to be employed and to follow. And so we want to flip the script and make sure that all kids, regardless of their background, of whatever label they were given at sometimes 5 years old, at 5 years old, somebody put some kid in a lower reading group and said, right now, you're not reading where the other 5 year olds are reading. So therefore, you're in a lower reading group. And that becomes a trap. It becomes a track and a trap that keeps them stunted in their development. And then as a system, we just keep feeding this notion of this placement decision that was made by someone when they were 5 or when they were 8 or whatever. This idea of higher coursework, and I love that you called out, whether it's AP or Cambridge or IB or whatever it is, it's saying that one, we believe in the inherent genius of all children. I do not believe that there is a distribution of intelligence in one community versus the other. I believe that it has been equally distributed across all demographics, across all language groups, across its socioeconomic statuses, right? It has been equally distributed. So if we really believe that, then we say, now what's the barrier between certain students having access and not just being there? Like Bettina Love says, we don't just want to survive, we want to thrive. So I don't want to just put kids in an AP class and they're like paddling. And then we reinforce this notion that they just don't have.
Right. And
takes
this
to be
idea, this
successful.
imposter syndrome. Why did they tell me I could do this coursework?
And I'm struggling. I'm drowning. I had 90 averages in general ed classes. And now you put me in this class and my average is a 60. What's up with that?
And we
For
will say to
me,
a child, but you know what? Getting a C in this class means that you're going to be able to complete college. They go, complete college? I got to get into college and I can't get in with a 60. So help me
and
out
tell
here.
a parent that. So to me, like opening the access to these courses, one, affirms, like puts our actions behind the stated beliefs around equity and access to opportunities for all students. It also challenges some of the adult beliefs about what a high performing, capable student can do. And so one of the things that we see is that the way we make these decisions are not always norms and systems. So sometimes we make these decisions around placement in higher courses based on grade point averages. It's not totally objective. As a matter of fact, it's very subjective. It could be how you speak. It could be what parent emails you and gives you lots of affirmation. It could be a lot of signaling that has nothing to do with raw intelligence.
Yes. And Monique,
So
because you're still a practicing soup, I know you can't say this, but I'll tell you something as a recently retired soup. We would have instances where if you brought in more Kleenex tissues, you got some extra credit. And so that boosted your grade because we're not looking at what were kids learning, but looking more at, I don't even know if you call it a work habit because it was just about bringing supplies to the
it
classroom.
was about your parents' ability to signal middle class values and some type of value in education, which I challenge altogether, right? Because I believe all parents value education. How it manifests has a lot to do with their circumstance. We have to challenge adult behaviors. We have to challenge how we are providing opportunities to students. We have to talk to students. And when we talk about student voice, students had very strong reactions. Some said, I don't want to take this class. It's hard. It doesn't appeal to me. You can't tell me that AP Calc is something I'm going to need. I don't want it. And we definitely had to talk to parents and community and to say, this is why we think this is something your child should have a right to. So it is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. So we started this idea of open access AP that you don't need to have 5 different recommendations from all these different. We're telling a 13-year-old, you have to get a guidance counselor recommendation. You have to have a teacher. You have to have
Right.
been in this
All these
prerequisite
Right.
in order to take this course. And my saying, what I've been quoted like numerous times saying, this kid can't break AP. I promise you. There is nothing that this 14-year-old can do that's going to break our program. What it might mean is that we're going to have to provide this kid with some summer supports so they can be ready. So we do have boot camp programs for kids entering into Algebra 2 and trigonometry saying, we know you have the potential, But for you to go there and do well, again, thrive, not just survive, you're going to need an extra boost. And we select the teachers that really are like high relational teachers. So it's not just about teaching your subject. It's about making kids feel confident and strong and empowered and bringing that joy. So we like really carefully select those teachers and say, we know that you not only are great at math, you're not only great at science and chem, but you also are like connecting. You're the kid whisperer. That if you tell a kid you believe in them, they're going to be like, yeah, okay, I wasn't going to do it, but because you said it, we get those folks and we pay them over the summer. And not only that, we look for students who've already done it, right? So this idea of first gen and overcoming, it has a lot to do with who else in the family. And I like to have a more expansive view of the family. What other Latino male, Salvadorian male has been successful at AP Chem in our school right now? And then we bring them in and we pay them. And you're going to be the tutors for those kids. So not only am I looking at my teacher, I'm looking at a peer who's 1 year ahead of me who's saying, yeah, dude, I did this. It's just nothing.
It's not just tutoring, it's tutoring and mentoring, isn't it? And it's
right. It was hard, but we did it. It wasn't easy. And
yeah,
so
you read about something similar to that, and I'm so glad to hear your experience of it because I've only sort of seen or read about it in Jeffrey Canada's in Harlem Children's Zone about bringing kids back and working within the school system, those who have been successful, to continue to support, mentor, and tutor. I love that you are doing that in your own school district, and what a great model it is for others who may not have seen, who may not have the same kind of resource that may exist in that system and seeing it in a public school system.
Yes. So yeah, we try and we're still building, but we're trying to use these models and expand them.
I love it. In my book and in the leadership model that I use to advise others, there's a dimension called the leader's learning work. And that's really like the mind of an organization's work. And inside that dimension, there are a few terms. One that you've used, one is serving as a lead learner, right? Being willing to be vulnerable. I love that as you talked about that in terms of one's ability to lead. And there's another term, or really two terms really, that is applying systems and design thinking. And I was thinking also about the fact that you referenced the 5-year-old who may be struggling in reading, who can't read as well yet. And yes. And how you are likely thinking about, okay, yes, we have some immediate work we need to do with our high school students and our junior high students about helping them recognize that they are eligible and capable of taking higher level courses. And we need to go back into the beginning of that system to see what are the experiences and skills that we need to make sure that children have. So when they do become junior high or middle school and high school students, that we're having fewer of those conversations because they are capable and ready, because they know it. Yes. And so I was thinking, though, those are all strategies. When you came to Uniondale, you inherited a system, but you also had to cultivate, to use your word, or curate, to use your word, a cultural field. Now, I couldn't help but think of the adage, sometimes attributed to Peter Drucker, although not actually said by him, which is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. Yeah. And it seems to me that you had to work on culture first. And one way to do that is absolutely what you have described so far in our conversation, honoring those voices in your district and including student voice. And I noticed your email ends with what you're reading. I don't know if you are still reading that book because it's been a few weeks since we first communicated, but you were reading Amplify Student Voices, Equitable Practices to Build Confidence in the Classroom. Why is it so important that you incorporate student voice into what you're planning?
I'm a product of Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, pre-gentrification, pre-millionaire brownstone, Brooklyn. I taught in Bedford-Stuyvesant. I taught in Boys. I taught in the community that I grew up in. That was my first teaching job. I was a principal in Bushwick. I mean, I don't know if that resonates, but my experience has been that the students from under-resourced communities have the least access to power. Juxtapose that with one of my children's experience going to school in the Upper West Side, very wealthy community, where I was learning, oh, parents can ask for this. Parents can ask for a meeting, and the headmaster says, yes, it's what time is good for you. So it just really made me think about giving the power back to kids. And I think that when I think about how young people spend their days in our schools, particularly in school districts and school systems where the majority of the students are students of color, Black, Indigenous, biracial, multiracial, Latinx, we spend a lot of time thinking, how do we control you? And some systems, not mine, they even focus on making sure you track eye movements, right? The degree of control that we want to have for our children. And so when you do that, kids cannot be free thinkers. They cannot say, I want to be an airplane. And the teacher's not saying, you can't be an airplane. They're like, you know what? We should do a book study around airplanes. We should find all the ways that your mind would design an airplane. I want that type of
Right.
thinking.
Did you know
And
Long Island, in fact, in your district, right, had such a rich history with Grumman, right? My gosh, why don't we introduce you to some designers, mechanics, aerospace engineers? Let's go meet some of these people. But they
And
don't
so
do
that says that the curriculum is not so fixed. It's saying that we co-construct the learning experience, right? And it does take a lot of skill and facilitation to do that. But this idea of student voice is really rooted in those ideas. And so it takes a lot of discipline, right? I don't always get it right, to kind of center our kids in this conversation. And I mean major decisions, not just, do you want to plan a dance, which is like the low level stuff. But I'll give an example of when I really struggled. And that's when I had to make the decision about reopening our schools after the holidays in the heat of the pandemic. And I spoke to every major stakeholder group who had very strong opinions about safety and about health and about all the things. I said, let me talk to my students. I already had a relationship with them. They trusted me, they liked me, and they had a very different point of view than I did about what we should be doing next. And the things they said to me made me cry, because they were living in multi-generational households. I don't live in a multi-generational household. They're saying, if I come to school and get sick, my grandmother might die. I live with my grandmother. And the things they said to me, I was like, that's not my experience, right? So yes, I am a Black woman, but I'm not a Black woman who has 3 or 4 generations in my household. And it really stopped me in my tracks and made me really think about the weight of the decision a little differently, because I heard their voices. So I try to remind myself to keep going back to them. And our saying is, nothing for them without them. Keep going back to them. Keep giving them lots of opportunities to weigh in. Even when we can't do what they want, they'd like us to do, explaining why. This is why we can't go in this direction. There's a law around that, or here's how we might change that law, or here's what I'm thinking. Because I think it's a little disingenuous to tell young people, or adults for that matter, that every decision that you weigh in on is going to go in your direction. We know as leaders that's not possible. But I do think we have a responsibility to come back to them saying, I really considered what you had to say. We're going to go this way. Here's why. I respect your opinion. I think we owe it to them to kind of come back. So I try to discipline myself and my team with continuously having lots of feedback loop opportunities with young people, formally and informally.
How does the term an imperfect leader resonate with you?
I think that's my daily walk. I think that good leaders, are always thinking about what can they do better. And so in order to think about what's the new goal, what's the new next level of work, you're thinking about what you haven't done yet, what you haven't accomplished yet. And I think there is a danger of never sitting back and appreciating what you have accomplished. But I do believe an imperfect leader is one who's always reflecting, always searching internally, always holding themselves accountable, thinking about behaviors, thinking about mindsets, open to learning, but recognizing that none of us, no matter what award, no matter what accolade, none of us has arrived. As long as there's one child who hasn't met proficiency, leaves our school system without a plan for their future, doesn't feel safe in school, whether it's our transgender, LGBTQ, and expansive youth, as long as there's one child who feels like school didn't feel safe today, school wasn't affirming for me today, then we still have work to do. And I believe the imperfect leader recognizes that and says we still have more work to do.
We're back for segment 2 of An Imperfect Leader, called Imperfect Leadership in After Action. And my guest is Dr. Monique Darrisaw-Akil, the superintendent of the Uniondale School District in Uniondale, New York. And in this segment, we ask our guests to deconstruct a decision that they made, and then we discuss it. Monique, what happened?
There was a tech product that we introduced in our district. I got some guidance from team members that this particular tech product was going to revolutionize a system that we were working through. And I have this theory of rollout that has worked well for me. We talked about it with our leaders. We piloted it with our teachers, told the board we were going to move forward. And so we launched in the beginning of the school year. And I was like, okay, great. This is good. And almost immediately we were getting feedback. This is not good. And I said, as much as I thought, I think I'm very strategic about rolling out new products. And everyone wants to be forward, right? We don't want to stay stagnant. And I do know that sometimes in the launch of a new initiative, there's always going to be pain. There's always going to be people who are resistant to change. And so I have a tolerance for that to a certain degree, but something just wasn't working because those voices were just getting louder and louder. And for a while, I thought I underestimated and characterized this resistance as, oh, people just don't want to change. They liked what they had. They're slow tech adopters, so they're just complaining. And so then I said, you know what? Instead of thinking this is an adaptive challenge, I said, okay, we're going to throw more technical solutions. So I was like, okay, more training. Here's what they need, more training. Just give them more. So we set about getting more training. All right, we're going to have parent trainings. We're going to pay folks to come to open school nights and do trainings. We're going to flood the teachers with more training. And I was hearing more from board members who are parents, from teachers saying, this is more complicated than our old system. And then we had students who said, and students who I know are diligent, who are hard workers saying, before I used to be able to see my coursework and see how well I'm doing. Now it just seems harder. And I think I was resistant and I think I just let it go too long before saying, wait a minute, I'm getting from every stakeholder group that this is not working. Why am I holding on? And at some point, I just said, enough. This is not working. And I had to abandon this initiative. And in doing so was costly because I don't know, but once you enter into a contract agreement with most vendors, they don't just say, oh, you don't like it, fine, we'll just take our marbles and go home. So we had to fulfill the contractual obligations for the remainder of the term of service. But I made a decision that if this is not working for my families, it's not working for our teachers. And the goal was to make this easier for teachers to communicate with parents and students. And we're getting the opposite of that, according to our stakeholder groups. I'm going to stop it in its track. So I had to go to my board and say, this is going to cost us money, but I believe that this is a mistake. I had to go to the community and say, I forced something on you that I thought I had gotten a lot of input and feedback on, but obviously not enough. We didn't do any beta testing. We didn't roll it out slow enough.
That's what I'm going to get to. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all the things.
Well, you're on a roll now.
I can do it now because I have a little bit of.
No, I mean, this is such a valuable topic. And when I think about
it now.
Look, yes, that is the most important thing of all. And I would say, though, so many of our listeners who listen to this podcast are those who are aspiring, who are in ed courses or ed leadership courses and are thinking about taking the plunge into leadership or district-wide leadership, those who are new to the field, and then those who are experienced who say, I'm curious to see how other people are doing this work. And this is such a valuable topic because, yes, so many of us move into or make a decision about an initiative that we believe is going to be great for our kids and our families and for the adults in the system that are serving children. And we have a process that we believe will work, and sometimes we overlook things. And so I'm curious, you were getting to it, what got overlooked?
So I definitely think we didn't start small enough. Doing a small beta test, a swab test, right? So you paint your whole room. Most times they tell you try a little patch on the wall before you just submit to Desert Red for your entire living room, right? So we didn't do that. And I think that if we had done that, we would have gotten a little bit more insight about how this really worked in real time. So I think that was the biggest flaw when I look back at it. And I'm going to say, as much as I trust my team because they're the closest ones to the work, making the decisions, I probably should have also looked, where else is this happening? With the beauty of the internet, you can either, even if you don't go physically to another school district to see how it works, we could have visited virtually to see. So we didn't do that at all. We just kind of went in blindly. And then we launched in the beginning of the school year where all good things happen at the same time and expected that everyone was going to be ready and they weren't. And then the thing I would say lastly is I just let a bad situation go for too long. Again, making assumptions about the complaints, thinking that if I give up now, then every decision I make is going to be negotiable. That was something I did worry
No,
about.
I mean,
Really
it's a
honest.
reasonable thought to have, particularly depending on where you are in your leadership's time within the district. If you're in those initial years, which it sounds like you were, then where do I stand and where will others stand and how will future decisions be made or negotiated? I think that's a reasonable thing to be considering and a reasonable way to look back and say, now what I know about this community and the people I lead, that I didn't need to worry about that. That in fact, I was going to gain credibility by being able to admit that there could have been a better way to do this.
Oh, I just want to say something. I mean, I really can't stress that enough because, of course, there are going to be some people say, oh, we told you. I mean, there's always going to be that. But the majority of the people, when I went into a faculty room and told teachers, I said, you know what? We've heard you. This is hard. We spend money on this. But my job is to remove obstacles from you, to remove operational barriers from you. And I didn't do that. I'm sorry. And we're going to stop doing this thing to you. We're going to stop imposing this thing on you. And they clapped. And I believe that transparency, that vulnerability, I gained more than ever in terms of people buying into my leadership because I was able to say, I made a mistake. And I stood in front of it. And I'll just say that you're talking about advice. I'm not blaming anyone. I signed off on it at the end. So if it goes well, I'm probably going to be in the front of it. If it doesn't go well, I am in the front of it. I did not say, oh, they let me down the wrong path. I signed off on it. And I'm going to admit that there was a mistake as the leader of the organization. And I believe that people respected that. No one got fired. And there's an expression which is a little dark, no one died, right? And that says a lot about your leadership, that if someone makes a mistake, how do you as a leader treat them? No one got fired. No one got a public reprimand. Listen, I want you to be a risk taker. And taking risks, sometimes there's going to be failures or there's going to be problems. But if I say that everything you do has to be perfect, no, I'm going to take a risk and we're going to stay stagnant.
What did you learn about relationships?
I learned how important honesty and integrity and vulnerability are from the leaders. I learned what mutual respect looks like in real time. Yeah.
In the end, and I think you have said this so beautifully, so there may be nothing to add, but I want to ask it anyway because this experience most likely impacted the way that you led following this situation. And so in the end, what was something that was good that came out of this event?
One, there's an expression, go slow to go fast. And I think, especially for new leaders, there's this pressure to excel during the honeymoon period and to get early wins. Slow it down and communicate. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This is what we hope to gain. Don't overpromise, but slow it down. It's okay to slow it down so that when you ask your community to make a huge shift, they are with you. So I think that's one of the big takeaways. And I'll reference a leader whose legacy has been debated, but David Dinkins, the first African American mayor of New York City, people would pepper him with all these questions and interviews and say all these things. And it was like a tennis match. He would be so deliberate and thoughtful in his responses that no matter how fast you spoke at him, he would slow it down. And that always stuck with me. You do not have to move at the speed of light to appease whoever's questioning you. You as a leader can set the tone and the pace. And there's so much displays of confidence in doing so.
My guest today was Dr. Monique Darrisaw-Akil, the superintendent of the Uniondale School District in Uniondale, New York. And Monique, I just want to thank you so much for sharing how leaders who lead with vulnerability, who lead with empathy, who lead with compassion, who honor the voices of staff and parents and children. They are the most exceptional leaders. And so thank you for being that model for us. And that last reminder there was so important, to avoid the impulse to make a quick decision. We'll make more predictably successful decisions together when we do that, when we avoid that impulse and make decisions together. So thank you so much again for being a guest.
Thank you, Peter. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, we're back.
She's amazing. We opened with she's amazing. We all now just listen to her. Yes, please. Sign me up. I'm in.
So you may not be familiar with her school district, but it is very much like Hempstead, New York, which is very much like Richmond. So she's in a part of Long Island, Uniondale, which is, it's almost like Berkeley and Albany to Richmond, like proximity, so close.
Yeah.
And sometimes a world away.
Right.
And so I grew up 10 minutes from where she is superintendent. And I'm just so impressed with what she is doing, has done. And she just seems to be like just the absolute right person. I can't remember if she was superintendent of the year, but she was also highlighted by the local paper, but they get 7 million people on Long Island. The local paper is, not nothing.
Funny. I picture one paper boy going, damn, this fucking route is long.
That's a great line. That's so funny. That's really funny.
Local paper. Jesus,
my arm hurts.
Were you ever a paper boy?
I tried to convince my parents to let me do it, and they said no.
Oh my God. I was a paper boy for so long. And I remember, I always love this story about where the first paper boy job I had, we had these bags that were front and back. And I'm 10, I think. So I'm like 11. And I'm riding around on my bike and I'm throwing papers willy-nilly. Yeah. But without considering physics, because as soon as the bag got light, I can't tell you how many times that happened to me as a 10-year-old boy.
That is too funny.
Like not learning at, it's 6 a.m. You're exhausted and you're like, nah, I don't care.
I had a get off my lawn moment as a new homeowner in the Midwest. First time we saw our paperboy, I was like, this is so charming. We moved from Oakland to Columbia, Missouri. This is so cute. This is so like Norman Rockwell. The guy, the kid's throwing his paper on our front step and then riding his bike off. Yeah. Then I realized he's riding his bike all over my front lawn and he's creating these paths. And when it's muddy, and so then the next day he's out there, I'm like, hey, you can just leave it at the bottom of the driveway. Just leave it at the driveway. I heard it was on like 24 hours. Oh, I was like, and then I was like, go.
You're an old man just like that.
Get off my lawn.
That's funny.
So funny. I'd like to say for any superintendent who is thinking about doing big work, all the work that we do in education is big work. When you become superintendent of what has been historically overlooked or historically seen as an at-promise district, there are certain pieces there that you all of a sudden feel like you've got to do it all. And I was quick to be sort of so complimentary about her accolades, about all these things that you've done. And she was so good at reminding me and reminding our audience, like, hey, time out for a second. I think she said this rags to riches narrative. Like, I loved what she says that, hey, let's stop there for a second and recognize, like, you have to do this together with your community. And I just feel that's so important as new superintendents are starting all over the country, right? This week, lots of superintendents are bringing their teams together for the first time, all their admin teams, as we are here in the summer. And those who have now just been hired think, okay, I've got this daunting job and I've got to do this. And if you say that it's an I, then you have already lost. You really got to look at this as a we.
I wrote all of the quotes down that related to that. And my summation was that her idea here is, in my opinion, is you're not as special as you think.
I like that. It's so true. I mean, she said there wasn't a meteoric rise if there wasn't a solid foundation of community support. And I was like,
exactly.
I was like, I totally agree. And shame on me for being, I just was so excited to talk to her. And she was so good at grounding me, right? To say, hey, it's not about me. It's about we.
No. And it's one of the primary pieces of advice that I think I give out is there's always someone better. Always. And they probably exist in your district right now. Ask. Listen, that's when she leans into not only is the answer, she says the answer is in the room. She doesn't just mean her staff. She means her parents. She means her students. And that she speaks to the very idea that the people closest to the pain have the answer.
Yes.
So when she asks students about it, she got a clearer answer.
Okay, so let's explore that for a minute in terms of students. And I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit to her work around equity, because one of the reasons why I wanted to replay this interview was because you never had a take on this. And not that you don't have a take, an opinion. It's just that you didn't get to meet her until you and I met afterwards. She talks about making this case for open access to higher level coursework and dismantling those barriers that prevent students from thriving. And as she talked, I just said to myself, like, this is Jamie's work. I mean, this is the work that he does. And I'd love for you just to, what are your thoughts?
Can I share a quote from her?
Love it.
She says, so a lot of people talk the talk around equity, and it means she says, and it means it's one of those words like scaffolding, differentiation, science of reading, fill in the blank. This resonated with me so much because in the book that we just wrote, we are reclaiming, and what she's doing here is reclaiming the equity narrative. Equity as a term has come to be a noun, a verb, like we use it to do everything. And when it does everything, it does nothing. So specificity goes out the window. And this is true for differentiation. This is true for scaffolding. I loved all of this. And so we've really struggled to try and figure out how do you talk about this and still get the breadth that the word equity can bring while at the same time being very specific about what are we trying to change.
Oh, that's interesting because you want it to be both aspirational as well as specific.
Correct. It's really hard. It turns out, as much as I'm frustrated by the term equity, because of its vagueness and inability for systems to actually address gaps, that places where we don't do a good job in supporting every student. I'm also blown away by how reliant I am on the word to describe multiple things. And so when the book says, when I'm writing a book and the publisher's, what is another way to say that? And I'm like, I don't know. So all of my huffing and puffing, and I can't come up with another way.
That's also helpful for those who are listening who are trying to really describe this work, this important work. And even those who are the experts in the field are also grappling and wrestling with how to do this well and how to describe the work. I thought as she really honed in on, for her, the specifics of equity is about opportunity gaps. And she says, and access doesn't come without support. Like, okay, then we have to support kids. And that was our biggest issue.
Is not the only thing.
Yeah, that was our biggest issue. If you were to ask me, so what were your experiences with this? And we worked so hard to open up and dismantle the prerequisites and all those types of things. And one of the just glaring omissions was, okay, you're in the class. Now, how do we support you? Because we know you're capable, but you can't just then exercise a traditional mindset around you're in the class, so now do the class. Okay. Like asking someone in a wheelchair to walk, like when they are confined to a wheelchair. Like, but we never do that.
Exactly.
Right? So what are the supports you're going to put in place so that there's equal access and opportunity?
Exactly. That I think she took that approach, which goes to what I would describe as scaffolding and ways to support underneath. She also goes to specificity and being specific about what it is that they want to achieve. And then last, which is I think a part of the equity agenda, is that you want to be very specific. What she talks about setting clear goals. What's the goal that we need to set and where are we currently? That I thought was extremely important. That's really important. When I ask, sometimes I'm sort of blown away by some leaders where I'm like, well, based on your demographics, where do you see gaps? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Let me look at the data. And I'm like, I'm not judging in that statement because I know the difficulty of the job. I know how many things are coming at you at once.
Yeah. I mean, you want to celebrate their gut telling them we have a problem. So that's good.
Yes.
And then in this case, I'm glad I'm here to help you kind of think through where do we find the data that supports what your gut is already telling you? Because it's there, and then we'll help you really articulate the why for those who are suspicious of maybe your motives or, and so to me, it's, there's a celebration. It's a kind of like start where people are, but don't stay there kind of thing, so let's just not stay there. Let's keep moving.
The third part of her definition, what I would call her definition of equity, she doesn't describe it this way, was leaning away from, she talks about middle class value signaling. And I just thought this was such a revelation in that we are unaware of the places where our system that we're running replicates the value system that we hold. And so it becomes more difficult
where we hold and where we thrived.
Yes, exactly.
Like, oh, I know this system. I can tell you how to thrive. I think I remember I brought up in our conversation about bringing Kleenex because it's like the oldest one in the book, right?
Yeah.
What other things can I bring to get some extra credit?
You get some extra credit if you donate some markers. Yep. And that what she leaned into in terms of her listening to parents and students was what are the ways in which they think about education, the way they value education. And it's in this, to me, is the true understanding of diversity as difference. It is valuing how people think differently. And that is where innovation lies. Innovation lies in that difference, not in another Jamie. Who needs another Jamie? Holy God. We don't need that. We need somebody who thinks differently, who can push and combine with my thoughts, push my thoughts, and create new pathways.
I love that. All right, listen, I want to talk about her after action review because she was incredibly vulnerable. And I really believe it was such an excellent example for any one of us who have been in leadership, who are in leadership. And that's this idea of having to slow down to speed up as a leader. And I'm curious, I mean, I have examples, but why don't we just get into her example? Because I think that it's so good in terms of moving forward, convincing a board to spend the money, and then realizing it's not working in terms of her solution, and having the ability, the strength of character to go in front of faculty and staff and say, and parents and students, say it's not working and we're going to stop doing it. Amazing. Amazing.
You know what this is? Do you know how to say I'm sorry? 'Cause it's huge. Can you? She's a humble leader. She is the definition of a humble leader. And what I love about it in that after action review was her first move was, oh, no. They're wrong. More training.
That's like, they must not have the skills. Let's do more training.
Exactly. Double down. I'm doubling down on the technical response. She even says it. I did a full technical. I didn't actually think of an adaptive leadership response. And I would love to hear, I mean, this is the kind of thing where when I hear this after action review about hers, is I'm like, I want to hear how her parents talked about mistakes.
Oh, her own in terms of how she grew up. That's interesting.
Yeah. Because I'll bet you that she had some very good upbringing about how to manage mistakes.
Yeah. Because here she was. I mean, she's learning in public. That public learning, serving as a lead learner, that is public learning. She was so rooted in her values, no doubt. And she really wanted to protect relationships. Like, they mattered to her. And so by doing this, she knew that she was going to strengthen them. They were going to be, you're in the forest right now, so I'll say, become even more rooted and established.
Yes. I loved it. I love the realizing that she had to stop it, and then realize I just have to take the hit. I made the mistake here. It lands on me. I don't think leaders do that enough. I mean, I'll speak for myself. I don't think I do that enough. I think I make mistakes and then I'm like, there's all these other things, and that's not untrue.
Yes.
But what did we say? I don't know. I think we've said this way before, but to me, leadership is taking responsibility for the things you care about. And some of those things I care about are out of my control.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my example would be standard reference grading, and I'm still trying to figure out where we could have done better. And I think the district that I led is still working through it, because I really truly felt that school was for learning and multiple opportunities to show mastery, and to avoid this compulsion around grades, and really building just better relationships with their teachers, and multiple ways to show that you've learned something as opposed to one high stakes test. And boy, we were really trying to shift an entire system, a large system. And so when she talked about the fact that she was able to go, it was a much smaller piece. I mean, it was having a ripple effect that could have been profoundly undermining of everything they as a team were trying to accomplish. So I don't want to minimize the impact. We were trying to shift the way that people understood teaching and learning and assessment. But she said, I think people respected that, and that no one got fired. And I want people to be risk takers. And I think taking risks means sometimes there are going to be failures. And I, even when I left, refused to say that we were failing, even though I think that probably a good 40% of our community, so that's a big number, I think, still had fundamental questions, reservations, and outright opposition to what we were trying to achieve.
I just love that. Even that, this is probably why I'm such good friends with you, why I love being your friend, is that your own understanding of your fear of saying failure, while also realizing that the term itself means learning, that there's learning in there and you want the learning. But it's hard to say I failed. It's hard to say I failed.
Yeah. I mean, you have any of these one-on-one conversations around teaching and learning and assessment, and you leave going, okay, so we're good. But it's like a one-on-one, every one-on-one. It was tough. And I had some schools that were just doing amazing work, and their community was so supportive, and others They were so traditional in their mindset of what grades mean and what that was going to mean for their kid and scholarships and all the wrong reasons to be thinking about it. But what can you do?
Dr. Darrisaw-Akil is on my playlist. Like, she's great. She's super great. She makes the mix tape for sure.
I love that. We
really enjoyed
should
it.
start a little competition of like who's on your mixtape in terms of the top 10 episodes that we've been a part of that we say, as people say, who should I listen to? Oh, here's one you need to listen to. You what?
Yeah, I've already got a bunch. I've got a bunch. And I'm like, oh, yes, let's do this.
That's amazing. Well, we're curious to know who's on your mixtape, who's on your top. And so if you don't mind, why don't you put a little note in our, you could put a little comment in Apple Podcasts. You can give us 5 stars. We'd really appreciate that. And then, what episode really resonates for you?
Yeah, tell us your top 3. I'd be so interested to see what other people say is their favorite episode.
Agree. All right. It's been a great time. I will see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week. Take care.
You've been listening to An Imperfect Leader, the Superintendents and Leadership Podcast. I'm Peter Stiepelman.
And I'm Jamie Monson.
We'll see you next week.